Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, members and guests. It is November the 4th, yes, 2024, and this is a regular online meeting of the West Shore Photography Club. I'm your host and president, Dennis Baker, and tonight we have what should be a very interesting meeting, show and tell. So we're going to hear the stories behind some interesting images. But before we do that, a couple items of business. Our next online meeting will be in 2 weeks, of course. We're doing the first and third Mondays, just like we did before the pandemic. That will be November the 18th. It's an image review, and our very own infamous Mike Donovan will be the reviewer. Now, we have a theme. Because we've had several meetings and instruction about how to photograph during the blue hour, Joe and I thought this would be an excellent theme for the November 18th meeting. Okay, and if you don't have pictures that were taken during the blue hour, you still have time to do that. But hopefully the website should be open like tomorrow, if not soon after that, to upload your pictures and get them online. Theme, blue hour, image review on the 18th. The meeting after that will be the first Monday in December, December the 2nd. Joe helped me with the pronunciation of this woman's name. She spoke to us before about black and white images, and we're bringing her back to do another session.
Her name is Savannah Della.
No, I'm sorry. No.
Camera.
Hubo?
I'm sorry.
For the second?
Yeah. Hubio Hu.
Okay. Yeah, I'm a little rustic on the Chinese names or the Asian names, but she'll be coming back to take us through how she processes black and white images. So that should be very interesting. Okay, I asked Joe to comment or to tell us a little about his experience over the weekend at Nature Visions, which isn't called Nature Visions anymore. So Joe, would you tell us a little bit about how it went?
Nature's Visions is in Manassas, Virginia at the George Mason University. They've been doing it for many years, but they stopped a couple years ago due to COVID and can't get people to volunteer. It's a 2-day function. It's overnight. They have some wonderful speakers this year. They had Art Wolf, who just did a wonderful job on his wildlife photography. Tim Cooper, who I particularly was interested in because he's with the National Parks at Night, Mike Moats, and lots of others. They also had hand-on functions too. They had raptor shoots, portrait sessions, and Mike Moats, who's big on macro. You could line up your tripod and he would help you get some really, really cool shots, plus macros. Many exhibitors there, Canon, Nikon, Fuji, Sony. It was a good session.
Very good. Very good. Thank you. Same time next year? First weekend in November?
To be determined if it's going to be held next year. They're like many of the clubs. I sat with some of the club presidents and chatting, and trying to get people to help with various functions is very, very difficult. And even around here where some of the clubs have gone out in the Virginia, Maryland, Delaware area, that's happened too because of lack of help.
Yeah, that's a theme we hear quite often with all nature of clubs. So we're very appreciative of your support and hope that you continue to enjoy your membership with the West Shore Photography Club. So thanks for renewing and sticking in there with us. Okay, a little bit of a change up here. As you know, or most of you know, Joe had been chairing the TRIPS committee for many years and has done a wonderful job. We've been very active with the TRIPS, and he's been so intense with it. He needs a little time to do his own thing and to become more involved with his own personal photography. So I'm very pleased to announce that our very own Jean Martin is stepping up and taking over as chair of the TRIPS committee. So Jean's with us tonight. I'm going to ask her to introduce herself to you a little bit because probably not many of you know Jean, even though she's been a member of the club for quite a few years. And then she's going to talk a little bit or ask people to talk about recent trips and upcoming trips. So Jean, thank you. Welcome.
Thank you, Dennis, and good evening, everyone. As Dennis mentioned, yes, I've been a member for a number of years. I took a little hiatus in there and for a while, had some issues with the jobs and getting people where they needed to be. So I had to take a little break, but I'm back and I'm happy to help in any way that I can. And so yes, it's been wonderful. And I guess on the 26th of October, the photography club went to Harrisburg Cemetery, and that was led by Mary and Eve. And Mary, if you could give a little chat about how that all went, that would be wonderful.
That's great, Jean. I think there were about 11 to 15 of us that showed up. And we were there like a little bit earlier this year, or a little bit earlier than we usually are, 8 o'clock. So the light was beautiful and perfect on some of the buildings and through the trees, and once we split up, I think more people showed up, but I didn't see them. I mean, the place is so vast that once you left, I don't know if Evie and I were sort of stuck together a little bit. And I think we saw Dennis. I think I saw a guy named Alex. And I don't know if I saw anyone else the whole time. We were there for about an hour and a half. But there was so much to see, and so much more than I saw last year, because I didn't know you could go down like towards the river, and there were mausoleums down there. And it was, I can't wait to go back. So, I mean, if Evie might have something more to add to that, Jean, I'm not sure, but or somebody else that was there. Dennis was there. A lot of people were there. So,
Oh, well, let's hear from Eve.
I saw the images come through on Facebook and they all looked wonderful. This past summer, I actually took my grandchildren to the Molly Pitcher grave in Carlisle, and I was amazed at how the oldest is 12 and the youngest is 7. So it was amazing to me how they were interested in the different gravestones and the various crypts and things. So graveyards are kind of cool, I think. This Saturday, Dennis is going to be leading us at Pine Grove Furnace. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that, Dennis?
Sure will. And, it'll be co-led by a number of us. I know Elaine's going to be there, and Joe, and not sure who else. Mary, you going to be there?
I don't think I'm having company this weekend, Dennis. I don't think I
Okay.
can make it.
No problem. no
Mike
problem.
is on the list also.
Yeah,
Dennis.
Mike is on the list.
Very good. Thank you. Pine Grove Furnace is a great place to photograph, a great place to hike, just to hang out, great place to kayak, especially in the fall and in the spring. We'll meet at the what was the general store, or is the general store, and take a walk along the tributary that leads to the lake. And just a wonderful area to walk through, and the small stream and the small waterfalls, lots of things going on. Not sure about the color of the leaves. A lot of them might be down by now, but still should be a wonderful trip. So we hope to see you there. And then we're going to follow up in the spring with another visit for a totally different look when the buds are coming out. Yeah. Eve, did you have any comment about Harrisburg Cemetery?
It was actually the first time I was there, which I had to look. I think it's 32 acres, believe it or not. I was shocked when I read that.
Wow.
There is a lot to see. And the leaves were beautiful. They said we may have missed it by a few days, but I liked what I saw. And just like Mary, I'm anxious to go back. There's so much to see there. It's pretty cool. Yeah.
I saw it as you did. I saw the post on Facebook, and I was impressed with Alex's comment. He's been with Club for a couple of years, and he said this is probably the best experience he's had with the club so far. He
Yeah.
really, really enjoyed it. So if you get a chance to go either with the club or on your own, would highly recommend the Harrisburg Historical Cemetery. Just one word of caution: it does neighbor the questionable part of Harrisburg, so you want to be a little careful about getting in and out. Okay. Jean, anything else?
Yeah, I think on the schedule it has for November 22nd, I believe, to go to the Capitol. Joe, how is that looking?
We are waiting for final confirmation, and as soon as we have that, then the information will get to you for the notice coming out. So-
Okay, so it's still in the works though.
Oh, absolutely. And it's going to happen. It's just different rooms. And that is a fantastic place to photograph. But you'll see more details in the announcement when it comes out.
Okay, gotcha. I think that's everything for me right now. I will recap next meeting, what we've gone to see and to photograph and what's going to come up in December. So it should be fun.
Okay, thanks a lot, Gene. Now, on to the show and tell. Here's the way it'll go. We're going to take the images in the order in which I received them via email. We have 12 total. Give you a total 5 minutes. Now, in terms of questions, I'm going to ask you, the photographer, if you want to entertain questions. If you're willing to do that, fine, we'll open it up for questions, but still trying to keep within the 5-minute time limit. If you'd rather not respond to questions, just say pass. That's fine, no problem. Okay, let me share the screen here. We're going to start with Jack. Jack, how do you pronounce your last name?
Abuso.
Abiuso?
Abiuso.
Abiuso. Ah, very good. Okay, Jack, here we go. Let's do the share here. Okay, we good to go?
Yep.
Here we go. And,
Okay, it's all
I'm
yours.
more than happy to take questions. Not sure that you're going to have many, but so this would have been March 2020 in Kenya, and on safari we were in 2 locations. This is the story part. 2 locations. We originally were northeast of Nairobi in an area called Meru, home of Born Free. The only reason I mention that is because lions and the story of Born Free, where they had the cubs and raised the cubs after the mother was killed. Well, we stayed in an area where that literally that location was. Saw no lions, but we did see a lot of animals. Beautiful location. The only reason I mentioned that, so that was there for 2.5 days, and then we flew back into Nairobi and then went southwest to Masai Mara. Now, you all may be familiar with the Mara region because of the Serengeti and the natural migration every year of the animals, and that's where you see crossing the Mara River and the attack by alligators and catching the wildebeest. So I only mention all of this, get to this picture, is that being there in March, the grasses in the picture wouldn't have been nearly this tall normally, but they had a lot of rain, but not much rain when we got there. Luckily, roads were muddy, but we were able to finally see, of course, lions for the first time. And so over a matter of days, I was able to shoot a number of pictures of animals, including lions. This lion in the picture, we were in a camp. As it turned out, just my wife, daughter, and myself were the only people there, because generally March it starts to close down. COVID was coming in, and the season starts to get pretty rainy. So the camp is supposed to shut down at the end of March through May. So we're out there by just the 3 of us with our driver, and we had been viewing this lion that actually came right by. I mean, I could have literally petted the lion. So I have photos much closer than this. But the reason I put this picture up is that the fact that there's only roughly, I mean, a guesstimate of about 5,000 lions in Africa, and about 3,000 in this area, and about 2,000 in South Africa. And so we were, I thought, lucky not only to see the lions, but this one was literally right by us for quite a bit of time. So the grasses are tall, the sky is massive, and I've cut a little bit of that off, and the part of the photo that I wanted to mention. So not being a member of the photography club at the time, me along with my D3500 have it in program mode, which would, of course, preset the aperture and the shutter speed. And as it turns out, this was shot at 1250th, ISO 400, focal length at 75 on a zoom 70-300 lens at f9. So the only thing I did, which is not much, but having been there for a number of days, this was one of our later days of shooting, was I set the exposure compensation. I had a great idea came to my mind days into this, and lots of shooting, that I could darken the exposure, which I wanted to do. Maybe overt, but the sky, I wanted to give it a bit of contrast. And so messing with a number of exposure compensations, I thought this picture looked good to me. I wanted to show it to the club. And so there's the story and the photo.
Very good. We have a little bit of time. Any questions for Jack? Okay. All right. Thanks, Jack.
Absolutely, Dennis. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you
Good,
all.
good. Let me make the switch here and see how this works out. And we'll come to Brother Chip's photo. Okay. Can we see the hammer?
Yes.
Okay, Chip, it's all yours.
Let me get that button.
Oh, you're muted, Chip. Chip, you're muted. We can't hear you.
I was on.
There we go.
Okay,
You're
how
good.
about now?
Yep, you're good.
Okay. Mark Batista presented to the club on September 9th. If you remember, he was a painter and a photographer, and he had quite a few images and a lot of different techniques. And he showed 2 shots of this stroboscopic effect, and it kind of caught my attention. And I belong to a club, a photo club here in our 55+ community, the Hillview Camera Club. We only have about 12 members, but we meet twice a month, and we have different categories we try to photograph. And the one for October was anything creative. And so this came to my mind as maybe giving this a try. And there wasn't much information. Mark had not given much information. So I went on the internet and read about this stroboscopic effect. And you had to have a flash that had a multi-setting. And this is a single exposure. It's not multi-exposure. It's a single exposure with multi-flash. So I set up in the basement, needed a black background. So I had a big screen TV, and I set up on this table in front of it. And I was by myself, so I'm trying to, I set the camera up on the tripod, did the settings. I'm trying to take the picture and move the hammer at the same time. That was a little bit challenging. I ended up changing the flash settings quite a bit, the number of flashes, the flash intensity. And I started out with about 10 flashes, and that seemed like it was too many. They were too close together. And I experimented with how fast to move my arm, my hand. And sometimes, just it didn't work out. I ended up taking close to 100 shots altogether until I got a few that I liked. Sometimes the hammer head didn't come down at the nail, was in front of it, back of it, or whatever. And so I ended up choosing 4 flashes on the multi-flash setting. And I played with the intensity a little bit. And at first I was getting a bright light right in the middle. And I thought that this was probably a reflection of the flash. So I put the flash head pointing straight up, and it was still there. And I'm not sure if it was a reflection from the mirror when the shutter opened, but I had to try to figure to eliminate that. So I found a piece of black construction paper and I taped it on the TV screen, and that took care of that problem. So it ended up the setting for the camera was 1/2 of a second at f9 and an ISO of 200. And let me see what else. Oh, then in post-processing, the piece of construction paper wasn't as black as the background. So I had to do a little spot hilling and cloning to kind of clean that up a little bit. But so I ended up with this one that I'm showing. I thought it worked about the best with the 4 flashes and the settings the way they were. But yeah, that's basically it. If anybody has any questions, I'll be glad to try to answer them.
Okay, yeah, of course. The thing I like is you took an idea that you had never tried before and just kept playing around until you got it to work.
Yeah.
How many times did you miss the nail?
Well, you know, it's probably 50-50.
50-50. Anybody have any questions for Chip?
Could you adjust the amount of time between flashes, I presume. So
Basically the number of flashes. I mean,
not the time between.
No, just the number.
Okay, I see.
Hey, Chip, how did your photo club like it?
It just happened that I was, I think, at my granddaughter's play that night, and I wasn't able to attend that meeting. So I think the guy that's in charge showed it, but I really didn't get any feedback from that.
Well, I think it's pretty cool.
No, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Chip. And as I understand it, there's another member of your Coatesville Camera Club. Well, it's not the Coatesville Camera Club, in the group with us.
Yeah, Doug. He was a member for a long time, one of the originals, and he can tell you he chose to opt out here not too long ago. But,
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
He's got an image tonight too, so he'll have a
Good.
chance to talk to us later. Okay, thanks, Chip.
Yep.
Let's do David's here. Okay, David, it's all yours.
Oh, thanks very much. One of the advantages of being in the club is that you get these challenges, and this is what this is about in large part. The reason I'm presenting this image is because of a couple of things. One, it's on an older iPhone camera. It represented a sort of a photographic dead end for me. It's about 2 years old. And at the time, I was more preoccupied, I guess, with pictures, you know, less than images maybe. And I kind of consider this more of an image. And it has the moire effect, which is that sort of interaction of cloth patterns. What it is it's a crystal dish on a cloth runner on a piece of furniture that I have, and it was there for you know, years, kind of thing. And then all of a sudden, the light just struck it in a certain way. So I wanted to, you know, explore this. The moire effect is this crisscrossing of patterns. When you're on the highway and you're going under a bridge and you see the chain link fence on top, you know, the link fence, and then, you know, you see the other fence on the other side of the bridge, and it runs interference with the first chain link. And that's moire. So this is moire on steroids. And what I wanted to do is process this in black and white. I wanted to have a lot of contrast in it. And technically, it was challenging because there were so many extraneous reflections. The cloth was very pilly. So I had a number of challenges in post-processing. I probably wouldn't take this photograph today because it was like Zen, you know, just getting rid of all these little spots and reflections. And I don't think I would have the patience to do that right now. The harsh sunlight, I think I used to my advantage. I did not want that vortex sort of on the left to be in the center, but that's the way I shot it. And so shooting loose the way I did, I think Dennis has suggested that so many times, gave me a chance to sort of scoot the, the vortex effect there over to the left. And I like the rest of the interference pattern on the right. I did take this out in Lightroom and processed it a little bit. I made some tweaks. Just a note: if you get moire on one of your cloth garments in a photo and you don't want it, both Lightroom and Photoshop have the adjustment brush where you can readily get rid of moire. But this was sort of a celebration of that. And I'd be glad to take any questions or answer, anything that folks might have about this.
David,
Yeah.
this is George. I got to tell you how much I like this. This is great, but it looks to me like you've got something of a screen covering the dish.
It's so interesting because it's not the case. The only interference is coming from below. It's the cloth runner that the dish is on. So the crystal dish is right there between the lens with nothing in between.
I imagine you could do this by putting the screen over a bowl and then taking the same picture. Or no?
Absolutely, and it would probably be more moire, and just bring it on. I think that would absolutely do that, George.
I think that moire really adds to it. I wouldn't disparage it at all.
Oh, thanks so much. It was interesting, and everyday kinds of objects sometimes give you a chance to make some of the most interesting shots. So thanks very much for allowing me to put this up, Dennis.
Oh, hey, thanks. I think it's intricately beautiful, and it's certainly a shot I would encourage you to take anytime. Yeah, it's wonderful. I used to talk about moire patterns in my physics class, and
yeah,
I think that's very, very exciting. Anybody else have any comments or questions for Dave?
David, it's outstanding. I love that image. Absolutely love it.
Oh, thanks, Joe. Sometimes you got to get out of your comfort zone and look for images instead of pictures, I think.
David.
Good idea. Yep.
Sorry.
Okay, thanks a lot, Dave. Let's go to, here's Doug's image. There you go, Doug. It's all yours.
Okay, thanks a lot. Great images, by the way, so far. So this was taken maybe 6-7 years ago. Can't quite remember. I was on vacation in Hanoi, Vietnam, and about 100 miles east of Hanoi is a place called Ha Long Bay, and that's actually where this photo was taken. It's a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and it's really noteworthy, for these monoliths, these limestone monoliths that you see. It's a very sort of otherworldly kind of look, and this was I think a 3-day cruise where you went around the bay, stopped at different caves and fishing villages, but just the views while we were sailing around the bay were fantastic. You see these fishing junks during the day and during the evening, and quite a number of them actually in the bay. So I just thought this was I thought it was a sort of a very interesting vacation, something I'd never done before, and a fantastic photo opportunity for anybody that's thinking of taking a visit there. I would very highly recommend it. So guess that's it.
Okay, questions or comments for Doug?
Beautiful photo.
Thank you. It's a beautiful place.
I do have a question. So this is in color. The color is not added selectively or anything like that. I mean, it's all shot at in color, I guess.
Yes. Yeah. It was pretty overcast for a lot of the time that we were there, and a little bit hazy. So that's why you see those I want to call them mountains, but rock formations in the back look kind of gray and out of focus. But there, the water was sort of a dark greenish hue most of the time. I didn't do much, if any, really color modifications on this. Just probably some increase in saturation a little bit, but no changing of the color.
I think that's one of the interesting aspects about it. It looks like a monochromatic image, and then you see those little spots of color on the boats. Really
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, it's terrific. I took some shots at night too. Unfortunately, the camera that I had with me was sort of like a pocket camera, wasn't really equipped for raw images, but they turn these big incandescent lights on, the bulbs, big light bulbs that line sort of the top of the ships, and that attracts squid. And so you just see these sort of islands of light in the bay. It's pretty fantastic, actually.
Very good. Other questions or comments for Doug?
All right, thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Doug. Okay. Let's see who we got next online. Oh, Joe. Okay. There you go, Joe.
Okay, thanks, Dennis. This was taken in Vietnam, and the settings on this particular shot was 1/350th of a second at f8 with an ISO of 51,200. And I'm including this image mainly to talk about how I get the images and when I travel, but I'll go through that in a minute. But this was at 51,200 at 24 millimeters. It was very, very dark inside. And it's amazing that when you take an image that is at 51,200 ISO and you take it into denoise in Lightroom, what magic it can work. It obviously softens the image somewhat, but it just does absolute magic. And I am not afraid at all of doing that. This was in a little island in Vietnam, and most of my shots were probably at 6,400 to 51,000 ISOs because the buildings, the homes that I were in were very, very dark. But I wanted to mention something. A lot of people will ask me sometimes, knowing that I travel quite a bit, is how do I get myself into these particular situations where I can photograph? And there's two things that I do, is I will use various services like Viator, Tours by Local, or with locals, and there's a lot of these places around. So you could say Vietnam, I want to go Hanoi, and I want to look for a photography guide. And most of the time you'll get hits with people that'll say that they're photography guides, but they're just basically happy snappers. And when you want a photographer guide, you have to work at it, but you can usually find somebody. And that's what this particular one was, a young man who I said I wanted to be able to photograph a train going through a village where there's only like 2 feet on either side between the building and the actual train. And he told me that he was going to check it out, but he thinks it was not there anymore. So he got on his scooter and went around for a week, taking videos of various spots that I might like. And he showed that to me, and we looked at it together. We were on a Skype call. And so we decided we were going to do that. So I hired him for like maybe $100 or something like that, or whatever the number was. And started at 3 in the afternoon, excuse me, in the morning, and went to about 5 in the afternoon. And we went to this little island that he knew of, and we went into various people's homes, workshops like this one here. And that's how I did a trip like this, by using the Viator Tours by Locals and with locals. And there's a lot of other ones. And just to give you some ideas, I did the same thing like this in Dubai. There was a guy that we met and hired him as a guide. And we photographed all day into the night. And he was an Irish kid who was over there in Dubai, just trying to spread his wings. And I can go on, like for instance, down at the Pine Barrens down in New Jersey. And tell me, Dennis, if I'm going over my time, please. Okay.
Good.
Okay. In the Pine Barrens, we were doing some scouting for a West Shore Photography Club trip, and there was a man who wrote a book on photographing in the Pine Barrens, and we hired him, and we had breakfast with him, and he took his map and his book, and he showed us all the different spots, and we went to those spots, and we determined by doing that it was a horrible place to photograph for a club, because it's very dependent upon the light, and if you have a bald sky, it just did not work. But hiring a guide to take us to those particular spots was really, really good. Did that in Martha's Vineyards too. And I'm just giving you a sampling of some of the things that we've done. And in Martha's Vineyard, I hired a lady who was a oil painter, and she had some wonderful images, and she sat down with her, she took me to the locations and marked them on Google Maps. And then I went around later on and I tried to find them again and to photograph them. So that's how I find these places and what kind of tools that I use for that. And so I just wanted to share that with you. Any questions on this one?
Very good. How
Yeah,
would you
Joe,
compare? Oh, go ahead.
if I can ask one question about the noise reduction in Lightroom,
Yes.
which one do you use? There's two here. There's one inside a little blacker oval, says denoise, reduce noise with AI. Then there's the manual noise reduction. Which do you use?
Definitely 100% use the AI one. It is infinitely better than the manual one.
It seems to take a long time. I've never done it all the way through.
It does take time. It's very intensive, particularly on the graphics card in your computer. And if you have an older computer with a slower graphics card, it'll take a long time. But it is by far much, much higher quality.
And higher quality in terms of retaining detail?
In the detail, yes, and bringing out the detail than the manual one.
Okay, thanks.
And it does result in a duplicate or a duplicate copy of your file.
It makes a DNG file, yes.
Joe, what was your camera, your shutter speed, and did you use a tripod?
I did not use a tripod at all in these environments. So it's a 1/350th of a second, f8, ISO 51200, and I use a Nikon Z8, which is a full frame camera.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks a lot, Joe. On to Mary Fox.
Okay, this was just a shock shot. I mean, I was out in my yard and I happened to see what I thought was a flower hanging from my bird feeder, and it was a flower hanging there. And I was so shocked by it hanging by a petal. I don't know how it happened. I don't know how long it lasted, but I ran in and got my camera and I came out and I took horizontal, took vertical, and it seems that when I take a vertical shot, it all comes out crooked, So I'm always having to straighten my photographs out. But this flower just hung there, and I just wanted to get a shot because I've never seen anything like it before. Maybe some of you have, but I certainly haven't. And the only thing I did was straighten it, like I said. And I'm not sure, I think I sharpened it a little bit. I didn't have to do much else to it. And the color is just the way it is. And the only lens I just had my normal go-to lens, which was a 24-70. And I use aperture priority, so that ended up being like 5.0, and it was 1/1000th of a second, and the I had to write this down. The ISO was 5,000. And it just was a little grab shot that I happened to see when I was outside.
Okay, questions or comments for Mary?
Very nice shot.
Yeah, I
Thank
like
you.
it a lot.
Thanks.
Nice seeing Mary.
Thanks.
It really makes you think about how is that happening? And you look at it 2 or 3 times and just keep looking at it.
I know, and it was just, like I said, I don't know how long it lasted or how it happened. It just was there, and I'm just so glad I saw it, because it's not something I see every day.
Terry, is there?
Well, it's good that you saw it when you did.
Yeah. I was gonna wait. I thought I'll take that later. Then I remembered, later doesn't happen in photography. You get it when you see it, or you kind of lose it. So I don't know how long it would have stayed there like that.
Is there a life lesson here?
I'm sorry?
Is there a life lesson here?
There's no
An
life.
analogy?
Just be alert, Dennis. That's all.
No, I'm thinking, that could be a person
Oh, like hanging by a, yeah, like
hanging
a thread,
on,
yes.
not
yeah,
giving up.
Yes. Yes.
That type
One
of
of my-
theme.
One of my former bosses saw it, and she thought it was like a metaphor for something. I said, no, but it could be,
Exactly. And that's a great term to use. I was thinking of that very term, metaphor.
Right.
And there's a lot of things that we can photograph in a metaphoric sense. When we think of it realistically, it's a flower, being caught in a bird feeder. But
Right.
when you think it in terms of a metaphor, it could mean something much deeper.
Absolutely.
Okay, thanks, Mary. That'll
welcome.
get us thinking.
Thank you, Dennis.
All right. Yeah, we got George coming up here. There you go, George.
Well, hello, good evening. With the recent really clear evenings we've been having the last couple weeks, no clouds, and very, very low humidity, crisp skies, I took advantage of doing some night photography. I used to do a lot of this many years ago when I was living overseas and had good night skies. And so I took advantage, and I basically went out, and this is very close to my house in a field not very far away. And I shot this with set my intervalometer on my camera for 400 images, and that's what this is. This is a 400 image star trail. Each shot is 30 seconds at ISO 400 at f/5.6. And basically, I went out to this field. I knew where this tree was, and I use basically a software on my phone to find the North Star. Let me see if I have the name here somewhere. I don't use Starwalk. I have something called Sky Guide, and basically that directs me to where I need to be, so I can make sure that's in my frame when I start shooting. And basically let the camera go, and I walk back to the car and read a book for 4 hours.
Okay. My question would be, why do you do 400 pictures instead of one picture for 4 hours?
Well, as you're well aware, if you do that, you'll blind the whole image, because one exposure that long, I forgot the name of the curve, but basically you'll effectively have if you look at it, this at 30 seconds is pretty much a proper exposure. Each one of these shots represents 30 seconds. Once I shoot all these exposures, I've neglected to mention, I use StarStax as my processing software, which stacks all these images together to create one image. From there, I end up going and editing the picture itself. I have to get out, spend hours getting rid of all the satellites, all the jets, all the noise that flies across the sky to make it look like pure stars.
George, this is Joe. How did you expose for that foreground and get it so vibrant?
Well, it basically I was half lucky. I had a half moon behind me. And that kind of illuminated. I was afraid with the half moon, because normally with star trails, you like to go out with a moonless night. I was really concerned I'd actually be overexposed. But it turned out to be pretty equal, all things considered. But even if I didn't have the moon, you can take a flashlight on any one of those 400 images. Usually towards the end of the 400 shoot, I can run a flashlight across the tree or across the yard just to do a little light painting, because the way StarStax works, it picks your lightest features and keeps them through the entire stack. So, but the one trick I had to do with this picture, behind that tree is Route 30 that runs between York and Lancaster. And I had to go downhill a little bit to make sure that was in the shadow of the hill, so I wouldn't have car lights running across the picture.
George, how long was the interval between each of your images? About a second?
I set my intervalometer for 35 seconds. So each exposure is 30 seconds, and then that gives the camera just enough time. I'd probably overdo it, but let it write and then reset. So
okay. I know because I've done this only once before, but getting that right interval, I think, is crucial, because if it's too long, then you end up with what looks like a dotted line throughout the thing, because there's a break in the movement of those stars. But you've done a really fine job making those lines very smooth.
thank you. Yeah, the interval should be relatively short between each exposure. For basically the reason you stated, and also, every few seconds you add, it's going to be another 10 or 20 minutes. You're waiting towards midnight to go home.
Did you ever pick up any color in the stars?
I didn't. That's pretty much the natural color that I had there.
Okay.
I didn't tamper with that at all. I think that little glow you see behind the tree there, that might actually be Harrisburg, way up about 20 miles away.
Yeah. Okay, any other questions or comments? Very good. Great. Thanks, George.
Yeah, you bet. Thank you.
Yeah, interesting image. Okay. Oh, and Elaine's up next. There you go, Elaine.
Okay. I hope that I have not already submitted this at some point in time. I couldn't remember. So if it's familiar to you, I apologize for the repeat. This is an image that I took in New York City about 1.5 years ago off of the Highline Elevated Linear Park, which gives you a great opportunity to view the architecture, which intrigues me to no end, because there's such a beautiful integration of the old and the new architecture in New York City, which is what I love most about New York. But what intrigued me, or what caught my attention in this particular scene, was that building in the center, which is very obviously tilted to the left. Now, this had nothing to do with wide angle distortion. I was using a wide angle, but this was very obviously tilted before I even put the camera to my face. And the people that were with me saw it as well. So to this day, I am still befuddled as to why that building looks like it is leaning. It's certainly not something I would want to live in. Although, as we walked by it, and then turned around and looked at it from the other side, it looked perfectly straight. So Go figure. But it made for a very interesting photo, I thought. Now the sky, I will admit, is a replacement. The sky at the time was very boring, but I thought that the cloudy sky really added to the mood of the photo, just kind of creepy. Otherwise, I didn't do a whole lot to it. It's just some basic exposure adjustments.
Okay, thanks, Elaine. Questions or comments?
Elaine,
Yes.
if you look at the sky to the left, almost at the top, you'll see a face.
Well, I missed that, Terry.
Oh, in the cloud.
Yeah, in the clouds. You know what? I wonder if it's because of the angle of the other buildings that it just looks like it's tilted.
Well, look, this is interesting. Look at the distance here.
Mm-hmm.
It does appear, I was thinking the building was wider at the top than at the bottom, but you say not.
It's not, no.
Oh, I don't know.
It's a mystery.
Yeah. Yes. Other questions, comments?
I have a comment on, excuse me, one building there on the right has it looks like a person standing up at the top.
Yes.
And between the building that's leaning and the person up at the top of the other building, I can't take my eyes off it. It's like, why is that person up there?
Is it a person?
It is a person. There were a few people milling around up there at one time. I don't know why, just looking at the views, I guess.
Well,
But
it is
with
a good
the-
example of the power of putting an individual in a photo. That's a perceptual thing that no matter how small a person is in your photo, viewers tend to see and find, that person and recognize it, as a person.
Right. And with that sky being kind of stormy, it's like, I wonder if she's feeling okay.
Yeah, I see what
Interesting
Terry means
observation.
by the face in the clouds up here. Looks like 2 eyes, the nose, the mouth. Yeah, interesting. Okay, anybody else? Very good. Thanks, Elaine. Okay. Oh, that's Joan's turn. There we go, Joan. All right, all yours.
Okay, I get to follow all these great photos, right? Other countries, and the cities. This is my great nephew, Brady, who's 14. And every so many years, he and I get together and do a photo shoot. The last one was when he was 7. I did him as one of the lost boys from Peter Pan. And I said to him this year, I said, let's do a photo shoot. What do you want to do? So he had already bought the Beetlejuice suit for homecoming dance. The times have changed. So we had the suit and I said, well, I've never seen Beetlejuice. I don't know, I don't even know what he does or who he is. So the day of homecoming, we watched Beetlejuice movie. And so he went to homecoming in just the suit, not the wig and makeup and everything. So the next morning, I had brought the makeup and the wig and everything, and it was full on theatrical makeup. So it took a while. So I made him up, put the wig on him, and now it was, where are we going to shoot Beetlejuice? So this is in front of the courthouse in his town, because in Beetlejuice, he runs around this village. I don't know if you guys have seen the movie, but he runs around this village. And so I thought, okay, well, that'll be a good spot. It was a bright sunny day, which was not the look I was looking for. And we saw the street lamp. And I said, this is a long shot. I said, but do you know anything about the movie Dancing in the Rain? And he said, no. I said, hop up on here. And I said, and I just basically told him how to stand and everything. And he's such a character and such a good sport. This is what we came up with. Tons of post editing, tons of it. I think the brick is basically done with a preset from online or On1. The sky is a sky replacement from Photoshop. I put 2 radial gradients in the light, so it looked like it was sort of like nighttime coming on. And I wanted him to be prominent in the photo, so I mask off the background and made that less, I don't want to say less sharp, and him a little bit sharper. I'm still not done with this. I see things every time I look at it that I want to change, but that's my story. I love working with my great nephew. He's awesome, and it's so awesome to have a willing subject.
Very good. Questions or comments for Joan?
Joan, this is Joe. How did you get the front of his jacket to be sticking out like that?
Well, it was actually windy.
Okay.
That wasn't on purpose.
Okay.
So.
Well, Joe, that's a minor detail, but I picked up the same thing immediately. That's what I was wondering.
Is that a good thing or is that a bad thing?
I think it is. What do you think, Joe?
I think it's a good thing.
Great.
Yes.
Great.
Yeah, another added little detail that just you pick up and say, "Oh, that's cool."
Yeah.
How did you get it? It doesn't look like a bright sunny day.
It was a bright sunny day. I looked for a spot in the shade. So I wanted him in the shade, because you can imagine what that suit looked like in the sun. And so the sun is actually to our right. So the sun is actually shining on his face. Not directly, but the light is coming from the right. Because I knew, I didn't know anything about Beetlejuice. So I was trying to put him in a scene, for lack of better words, where Beetlejuice might be. Okay, so it was this village, and I needed to get him darker, but I'm still not sure about the background. I think I'm gonna drop the light on that background some so he sticks out more, as well as the street light.
Yeah. Other questions or comments for Joan?
It has a definite cinematic look for sure.
Yeah,
like a movie still, or like a on-set photographer's work or something like that. So you definitely hit the movie-ish kind of feeling.
Mike, thank you so much, because that is what I was going for. And I worked for hours on this.
This is Dave Marchetto, and now the only thing you need to do is put some raindrops on that thing.
That's true. That's true. But yeah, I didn't really know where I was. I had an image. I knew I had a vision, let me say, based on the Beetlejuice movie, what I wanted it to look like. And I had that willing subject. Now it was just to get that right tone or that right feel to it.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, very good. Thanks a lot, Joan. Yeah, I saw the play at Hershey a couple of weeks ago, and then that reminded me of Halloween. And when my grandkids were little, they would all come here after they were done trick-or-treating, and I would have a photo shoot in the basement in the studio. It was a great time. I miss those days.
It is something that's really fun to do. We love to, well, he likes to dress up and in different characters, and it is something really fun to do.
Right. Okay. Oh, we got George Ryan here. There we go. Okay, George.
Okay. It is probably not going to be a surprise to you that this is a composite. The background is a place outside of Kyoto, Japan, called the Bamboo Forest. Although it was raining and kind of sloppy, the Bamboo Forest was actually lighter than this, more green, but I wanted it to look moody. Now the faces in there are taken from some sort of gonzo machine in the LA airport on the way back. They had a machine that had a face on it, which is about 5 feet tall, about 4 feet broad, and they kept moving it around in different orientations. I thought, darn, that's interesting. I need those faces. I know I can do something with them. And so I took them from a number of different angles, and thinking of what I could do with them, I could put them in the bamboo forest and call it Voices from the Past, which I called it. And it's supposed to look moody, depending on the person who's looking at it. You can have all sorts of feeling, I think, unless you say, oh, it's a bunch of crap, don't want to look at it anymore. It may make you think of long lost relatives, friends. It may make you think of long lost loves that no longer exist. It might make you think of something mysterious. I don't know. That's the eye of the beholder. Anyway, I thought it was interesting.
Very good. Questions or comments for George?
George, this is Joe. How did you tell us how you did the compositing of the 4 images and embedding them into the forest?
Well, what I did was actually I probably took more trouble than I needed. I did the forest, and then I copied a face, put it on another layer, changed its orientation, resized it, and then put it behind the picture of the forest, which is the base thing. Then I did that with the other ones. And then with a brush, I erased part of the forest. What's the thing in Lightroom where you can, oh Lord, you, I'm trying to think. It's there in the layer panel where you have the little white screen out to the side. You use a brush and X for erase and white to unerase, or vice versa.
Oh, you mean in Photoshop?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're using layer masks?
Yeah. A layer mask. Yeah, that's what I was trying to think of. And what the X does, the white or black, I've never learned because I don't have to. I try one, it doesn't work, I go to the other.
Right.
There's only 2 choices. It's hard to go wrong.
Yep. Other questions, comments?
George, it reminds me of Vietnam.
Well, it might. I've never been to Vietnam, but I know they got lots of bamboo there. And the faces are not Oriental, they're Caucasoid, but well.
Terry, how does that image make you feel?
How does it make you feel?
It's hard to say. I've always been against Vietnam and what happened there. And it's like, these are faces, to me, they're saying, we're lost here. We're here forever and we're lost.
All right, that's interesting. I'm glad that someone had some feeling, because I want this to be a picture that people would have feelings about.
Yeah, it makes me a bit uncomfortable. It has a haunting feeling to me.
Does it make me feel uncomfortable?
Does it?
A little. I think, well, I shouldn't say it makes me feel uncomfortable. It makes me feel sorrowful for all the men and women who died there. Their spirits may still be there. I don't know. But that's what it looks like to me.
Well, I think that's absolutely valid, and other people might have different kinds of ideas, which is just fine.
No, anybody else want to chime in?
I kind of feel like when I look at it that, yeah, it does kind of remind me of Vietnam, and it's kind of like these people were there and we never really saw them. We never really saw these people as human faces.
Yeah. I think one of the good questions to ask yourself and others when you look at pictures or when they look at your pictures is, what do I gain? What knowledge do I gain by looking at this picture, or how does it make me feel? Okay.
Mhm.
Good. Those are two good goals to have. You want to convey information or convey a feeling. So George, I commend you for that.
Well, well, that's what I intended, a feeling.
Yeah, yeah, indeed. Okay, any other comments or questions? Very good. Thanks, George. Yeah, we're getting a good variety of images here. These are interesting. All right. Eve, it's all yours.
This is a photo of a puffin from Machias Seal Island. It's off of Cutler Harbor, Maine. There's only 2 charters that go over to the island that are allowed to, I'll say land at the island, but they actually have to anchor out and then they boat you into with a smaller boat. They allow one from Canada, New Brunswick, and one from Maine. And the little island itself is just filled with puffins. Both of them appropriate, they both own the island because it's rather in both of their areas. So there's a New Brunswick, there's a flag for them and the flag for United States on this island. But they go out, I believe it's May through August every year. You can book it starting January usually, and they fill up right away. You have about an hour on the island. We had a great day. We had almost close to 2 hours. You're in a small blind for photographers. There's about 15, 16 photographers, people, mostly they're photographers, at a time, one a day. And you're in a blind. It's probably about a 6x6 wooden building, and it has shooting holes, I guess I'll call it, that you can put your camera through. So you have this access to these puffins. And if it's bad weather, it's a one-time deal. You book your day months ahead. If it's bad weather and they can't take you out, you lost your chance. They can't rebook it. So anyways, lots and lots of puffins. But what I liked about this one, typically, I'm not a birder, and typically you want both eyes in a bird when you see it. I had a ton of those, but this one I like that the eye is just slightly peeking out of the wing. You shot quickly, you shot a lot, but while you're in the blind, just so they don't see you, they're not afraid of you. So you have all kinds of access to them. They're beautiful birds, got a lot of personality. This I shot at a 1/400, I think it was f/6.3, ISO 100, about 120 millimeter. You don't have time to change lenses or anything. If you're going to do that, take 2 cameras. It's tight quarters. A friend and I went together, met 2 other Nikon shooters on the boat on the way out, said, hey, how about if the 4 of us get in a blind together and you just switch off. There's 3 sides that have the holes built into it that you can look at. So it's pretty dramatic. We just happen to get a really, really good day out there.
Very nice. Questions or comments for Eve?
It looks to me like, don't shoot, I give up.
No.
There you go.
Any of them come back with a mouthful of fish?
I hate to tell you because I'm not a birder. Yes, I have a picture, and I almost put that one in, of an all black bird, and they had the little silverfish. Somebody else is going to know what they are, and I probably asked that day, but I don't know what it was. But yes, but they were all black, a little tough to photograph. Those birds were, but.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's kind of the iconic picture with the puffin with the mouthful, those little silver fish.
Yes. Yep. Yep.
Yeah, interesting perspective on this one. Other comments or questions for Eve?
Eve, I think that the eye peeking out like that makes that a really good shot rather than a head-on shot, because you probably had 1,000 of those. And this just is really cool.
Yeah.
Did you see little ones too?
No, I did not. They are, I got to think where they were at this point in the nesting time, but they were all I guess you call them adults, but they were all the same size. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Anything else?
Yeah, Eve,
Yes.
this is George. I hope you will forgive me for saying what I'm going to say. I understand in Iceland they eat puffins.
They may, I don't know.
And so if you manage to get a morsel of puffin into a biscuit, what you would have is puffin muffin stuffing.
Oh boy.
Oh,
George.
I wasn't sure where you were going with that one. Yeah. Okay, number 12. Let's finish up with Mr. Mike. There you go, buddy.
Okay, George, thanks for the intro that I cannot possibly follow. This, of course, is the world-renowned Rockville Bridge. The reason it looks the way it looks is because it was taken with a Voigtlander Bessa from the 1930s. No metering or anything like that. You could change shutter speed and aperture and of course focus, but it was all of course manual all the way. So what I did was, those of you who were born before a certain year may remember what's called the Sunny 16 rule.
Yep.
And the Sunny 16 rule says, if it's a bright sunny day, use f16 and your shutter speed as close as you can to the speed of your film. So the ISO, which was ASA back in those days, was determined by the film you were using. The more emulsion on the film, the higher the number, and thus the more sensitive to the light. So this was probably a 400 speed film. Pardon me for a moment here. Okay. This was 400 speed film, and which meant I had to get my shutter as close as I could to, say, a 400th of a second, f16. Now you can see it was not a bright sunny day. So then you work your way down f11, f so on until you hit it. And I was fortunate enough to hit it. It's 120 film, which is bigger than the 35 millimeter. The negatives are bigger. And the film was expired. So the film was old, the camera was old, I was old, and the bridge was old, which is why everything looks old. What I did was I took the shot, and the colors were truly funky because, as I said, it was all expired film. So I put it into, I had the film developed at Fine Art. Color film is kind of weird to do yourself. So I had it done at Fine Art, and then I scanned it and worked with it in digital form. So what happened was, I had to do a lot of work with the color. There was a lot of purple and a lot of magenta. You can see there's still some magenta in the water, and a touch of purple in the sky. So most of my work here was trying to get the colors under control so that it would look at least like something. And then I put a really light texture over it, and that's where all the little marks and lines and so on come from. I wanted the picture to look as old as the bridge, is what I was after. And there's probably 2,497,086 pictures of the Rockville Bridge, and I probably took the 86 at the end. So so that was my goal here, to make the image look just as old as the bridge itself, and to have it look different from most of the other photographs of the Rockville Bridge. So it was a Voigtlander Bessa from the 1930s. It's a bellows camera and some expired 120 film, and then you see what you get.
Very interesting. Okay, questions or comments for Mike?
Were the scratches and the marks, I don't know, what you would call them exactly, but the scratches and stuff, was that on the film, or is that something you added to make it look a little bit older?
That was added, and I think I heard you say you use On One.
Sure.
That's what I put that on with, is On One. It's a
Ah.
texture.
Okay. What package is that in? Do you remember?
Oh my gosh. Mark Albano will get a charge out of this. I have any texture or preset that comes down the pike, I put it on On One. So
Oh, okay. But I mean, it was probably like a vintage under the vintage.
yeah, I would think so.
Yeah, I would too.
Correct.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Yep.
Mike, I was so hoping you'd broken with tradition.
Sorry.
You had my hopes up.
Well, this one called for it.
Yeah, it's true.
Okay, other questions or comments? Come on, you gotta bombard Mike with some stuff here. Ask him some questions.
Mike, I think you nailed it. I like the way it looks old. Like you were trying
Thank
to
you.
get
That was the goal.
Mike,
I think there's some dust spots in the sky.
yeah, exactly what I was going to say.
Yeah, I put him there.
That's a good answer.
Thank you.
Mike, this is Chip. In the foreground there, I see that some of the foliage is lighter. Did you do that on purpose, or did that just come out that way?
It came out that way, and I decided to go with it because you might remember that lighter tones advance to the eye and darker tones recede from the eye. So I thought that might add some more depth and make it look a little bit like the old stereoscopes. So, and when you use those, like part of the image seems to come forward, part seems to fall back. So they were like that, but I left them like that.
Okay, very good.
Okay, anything else?
Mike, one more comment with that green down at the bottom. It almost looks like watercolor painting, like you said in the stereoscopic pictures.
Yeah, that's very true. And the thing that I was happy with is it came out, like you say, watercolory, kind of smooth. The colors blend really well.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Mark.
Okay, any final comments?
Hey, Mike, this is George. I have one small question, if I may. Do you think it'd be possible to get something like this effect from a modern digital camera?
You could, yeah, I do. I'm not sure it would look exactly the same, but you could head down that road, yes, by desaturating. The problem would be, George, I think, is to lay the color like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, George, I think there are some presets, and in Photoshop you can use some layers, and or On One does an excellent job with that. But yes, you can simulate that look, and that's one of the things that personally I try to do. I think pictures taken today with digital cameras are almost too sharp, too perfect, too sterile looking. So I like what Rick Salmon says. He says, take a little reality out of the picture. Desaturate it, turn it to black and white, add a texture layer, do some stuff to take the edge off of it.
Yeah, this is a charming effect.
Thank you.
Well, Mike's
that also, Dennis, what you mentioned, Dennis, is also why vinyl records are making a major comeback.
Yes. Yeah, those snap, crackle, pops that we used to complain about are now treasured. Exactly. Okay, let's wrap things up here, guys. Take that. Okay, I will send out the email tomorrow, and it will have a link to the recording and a copy of the most recent schedule. During the meetings, we just give you like the next meeting or two, but I'll send you out a copy of what, the long forecast, so you can mark your calendars and know what to expect. I'll be going away on another trip. My wife and I are going on a cruise around South Africa. We leave at the end of this month, and we'll be going for 2 months. So I want to thank Joe in advance for taking over for me again. He's been great about that. He'll be hosting the meetings while I'm gone. I'll try to get as much of that prep work done before I go, but that won't be until the end of the month. So thank you to the folks who presented tonight with your images. I found that fascinating. I hope the rest of you did. So thank you very much, and we'll see you guys later. Okay,
Dennis, this is Dave
Yes,
Marquetto,
David.
and I really want to recognize the fine work that Joe Farrell has done with the TRIPS committee. I'm sure the club members would join me in thanking Joe for his dedication, painstaking work in all the preliminaries that he has done to make sure the trips are successful. I personally have benefited enormously from Joe's work. I'm glad we have good hands that are, now going to take over. But Joe, many thanks, and hope you put your time, newfound time, to good use with your own personal photography, and much appreciation.
Very well said and very appropriate. Guys, join me in giving Joe a round of applause, if you will, please. Unmute yourselves.
Yes, thank
Thanks,
you, Joe.
Thanks, Joe.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you all for that. I appreciate it, but I want to let you know that it's the TRIPS committee that actually makes the things happen. And they being volunteered to lead trips, to do the scouting, to write up the trip descriptions and getting them posted and organized. It's really them to do all the hard work. So thank you to all the TRIPS committee members. It's been great working with you, and I'm still going to be on the TRIPS committee too, because I just am.
Very true, very true. And that's our continuing effort to get more people involved. Again, as I said, I thank Gene a whole lot for stepping up. All the committee members, the people who take the leadership roles in these trips and presentations and just attending meetings. So it's just a wonderful thing to see all of you involved with these photography club meetings. So thanks again, and good night.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Okay.
Very good. I'm trying to stop the recording. I'll just end the meeting. Okay. See you tomorrow morning.
Okay, take care.